I'm trying to approximately look at the upvotes. I can't really do it very scientifically because I'm moving on the fly here. But here's one with 13 votes, and that belongs to Ian A. Little. And he writes, Bill, I am going to invent a person, and your job is to win her over to our side. A 25-year-old white female, unmarried, unemployed, childless. She has a fine arts degree from a liberal college, is on food stamps. How would you do it? I think I'd just sit down and say, I'd just look her right in the eyes and say, how happy are you right now? Because you don't seem very happy, and as a matter of fact, you seem to be spending all of your time telling yourself that you're happy, and things like these affirmations and empowerment slogans, and having a coffee cup that says that girls kick ass and all the rest of it. People who are happy, and I don't mean people who are mollified, I just mean people who are happy. I think that's the goal in life, right? Everybody should try to be as happy as they can. I think really that's my entire mission in life, is to make sure that as many people get to be as happy as they possibly can. That's what life is ultimately. That's the reward for life. I'm not saying that being happy all the time is the way to get there, but happiness and satisfaction are why we're alive. So you don't strike me as a terribly happy person. And the reason I think that you're not a happy person is because people have lied to you for your entire life in order for you to vote for them so that they could get more money and more power. And they've told you a very, very large bushel of lies. And probably the one that you're suffering from the most is the lie that they've told you about how women can have it all. And before you get up and start defending this, let me simply say that no one has ever told a man that they can have it all. No one can have it all. No one can have it all. We're not saying that this idea of women having it all is a lie because we don't like women. We're saying it's a lie because it's not possible. It's not possible for anyone. No one can have it all. If your goal in life is to be a successful business person and crush the competition and walk through Wall Street with a steely-eyed glint and have people cower at your arrival, that is something you can do, and it's something you can do as a woman. But if you think you can do that and be a loving mom and have a happy family life, you can't, because the men that do that don't have a happy family life either. You don't get to have it all. You have to decide what you want. And so you have to decide what you want to be happy. And my experience has been that what people really mostly need to be happy is to find someone who covers their shortcomings. In other words, find somebody that you love and who's worthy of being loved, somebody who's good enough to be loved, and it has to be somebody that you respect. And you have to respect them no matter what they do. It doesn't matter if the woman makes more than the man, but it does matter that the man is out there working. Because if he's not working, if he's not doing anything, just sitting around on the couch, you don't respect him, and you can tell me all the time you want to that you do, but you don't. You don't respect him, he doesn't respect himself. So if the goal is to be happy, the question is, what do you want to be happy? You can argue with me about this if you want to, but I don't consider it to be an incredible advantage when I say that, as a general rule, men are not as dependent on emotional relationships as women are. You can say that's absolutely not true because I know a guy who's very emotional, and I also know a woman who's very unemotional, and you've simply just proven I'm right because you can count the number of people like that on one hand. So what I'm saying is this: what is it that would make you happy? I can tell you what makes me happy as an individual human person, not as a conservative or as a male or anything. I'm happy that I met somebody who I respect and who I love because of the things that she does and the quality of the person that she is, and who loves me unconditionally, and there's nothing I can do that will destroy that, although God knows many times I've unintentionally seemed to manage to pull all of these off. I would say, and the reason that this makes me happy is because she is good at things that I'm not good at, and it frees me from burdens that are more than I can carry. And if you think you can carry all the burdens in the world and that you can be all of these things, and that any kind of a concession that this isn't the case is an admission of weakness or surrender, or you lose the argument, that's just an indication of how badly you've been lied to. Nobody can do it alone and be happy and be successful. So what are you looking for? And at this point, we can continue to play this kabuki game of what we should say, or we can cut to the truth, which you know is true and which I know is true. You're a 25-year-old woman, you're single, you're living on your own, you're doing all of these things by yourself, and you're proud of being able to do them, and you should be. But you are looking for someone who can provide emotional strength at a time when you are not emotionally strong. You need somebody who can provide financial assistance, because two can live about as cheaply as one, and it gets you from a world where you have to do all of these horrible, miserable things all the time to a world where you can actually enjoy life, because you don't have to do all of the work anymore. Now you can do half of the work. This guy doesn't have to be a special forces guy. If you like a sensitive guy, if you want a guy who cries at movies, I cry at movies, and I'm a pretty damn good shot with my AR-15. They're not mutually exclusive. You see, you think they are, but they're not. And so you just have to understand that all of these conflicts in your life that are seemingly making you miserable, and yes, I know you're not miserable. No, I know you're absolutely happy. I know you live a totally contented life, absolutely no question about it. And you need a man like a fish needs a bicycle. I understand that, sure, for sure. So yeah, you got that out of the way. Congratulations, it's said, and I understand that I'm talking about other people, not you. But since you're so unhappy, you're unhappy because people who have given you your value set have given you an impossible set of values. And they've done it so that you would become dependent not on a man and not even on yourself, so that you would become dependent on them. You would become dependent on them. You would look to them for what you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to feel, what standards of beauty, what standards of success. You basically found them, and you have given all of your power over to them because you haven't heard anything else. But these people have lied to you, and they haven't lied to you for your own good. They lie to you because they need you to vote for them so that they can have money and power that they are not capable of having on their own. I would also say, if you think I'm wrong, think about this. There are two fully modern, equal people who are gender equal and have absolutely the same advantages and disadvantages, composed entirely of the same exact things. They're just 100% equal. The man and the woman, there's no difference between them whatsoever. Just the biological differences, and otherwise they're absolutely the same. And they're two young people. They're your age. They're 25 years old. And they're living in an apartment together, and so on. Okay. If you have a world where a spider this big appears in your bathroom drain, there are 3 different outcomes that can happen in terms of the reaction to that. 4. It's a quadrant. You can have the men be brave and the women be brave. You can have the man be brave and the woman be afraid. You can have the man be afraid and the woman be brave, or you can have the man be afraid and the woman be afraid. And you would tolerate 3 of those boxes, but the box you would not tolerate is the box where you're afraid, where you're not afraid and your boyfriend is. That would be the end of it for you. That's the one quadrant you couldn't live in. You could live with a boyfriend who was as afraid of spiders as you are, and you could live with a boyfriend who wasn't afraid of spiders because you weren't afraid of spiders either. And you could also live with a boyfriend where you're afraid of spiders and he's not afraid of spiders. Those 3 boxes you can inhabit. But you cannot inhabit the box where he's terrified and forces you to be the tough guy. It's you can tell me whatever you want about this guy, and he may be a very, very good barista or run a great YouTube channel or whatever the case may be, but I will not believe, and I will not believe it because it is a fundamental truth, that you are not happy in a relationship where you are forced to be more physically brave than the man you're with. I know a lot of you are dating guys like that, but this is why you're miserable. This is not to say, see, this is the problem with cognition and the way you've been taught about things and how you don't learn how to think about things and can't really sort out what people are actually saying. This is not saying that you have to be weak. It's not saying that you have to be afraid of spiders. It's not saying that men can't be weak. It's not saying any of that stuff. It is saying that on balance, physical courage, generally speaking, and certainly the willingness to get dirty, generally speaking, historically resides in the male, and they are more likely to be able to deal with these kind of things that are unpleasant to women and also unpleasant to some men. I remember coming out of a supermarket before I met my wife 3-4 years ago, I guess, and this woman was just, she wasn't screaming, but she was making noises that sounded very much like screaming. And I went running over there because I wanted to make sure she was okay. And she was looking in the back seat of her car, and I thought, what is going on here? Is there a guy in there? Is somebody harassing her? And what happened is she had bought some firewood and put it in the back seat of her car. It was wrapped in plastic. And out of the firewood had crawled an insect that was this big. And that insect had then crawled up onto the back seat. It was up against the back window of this sedan. And she was looking at this insect, and she didn't know what to do. She didn't want to touch it, and she didn't want to drive off with the thing in the back of her car either. And she was just vapor locked. So I walked over and I said, "Is there a problem?" And she said, "This thing's in my car." And so I didn't have to go to the internet, and I didn't have to make a plan. I pretty much just went in there and reached in and picked this thing up gently and lifted it off of the back of the thing, and the thing starts crawling on your hand and puts its little hooks into your hands, and it's not a terribly pleasant. It's not like a super pleasant experience. It's not like wow, but to whatever degree having an insect crawling on you makes you uncomfortable, it is a discomfort that I was certainly able to overcome. And I simply picked this bug up, and I took it out of the car, and I walked over to the bushes, which were 2 feet away. I wouldn't have done it if it was a mile away, but 2 feet away, and I put it on the bush, and I said, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" And she said, "No, thanks." So the reason I know I'm right, dear unidentified young 25-year-old progressive woman, is this. Men are scared of bugs. Some men are scared of bugs, and some women are not scared of bugs. But the way that things generally break out is even if men are scared of bugs, they are more capable of going in and doing something that they don't like. It's unpleasant or whatever. They're more capable of it than women as a general rule. And the reason they're more capable of it is not because they're better people, but it's because they tend to be more simple-minded than women. They seem to be, and this is a lovely balance. Men seem to be much more focused on individual tasks and not connected everything to everything else, which you could certainly say is a very admirable quality that women have as a general rule. But because men have this ability, they're capable of doing these things, and you are not supposed to be unafraid of bugs. And most people that grow up in the suburbs or the city are also afraid of bugs. And there are men who will shriek at the sight of a bug, and there are women that will shriek at the sight of a bug. But the reason I'm right is because 99 times out of 100, if you have a couple living together in an apartment in Soho, and there's a cockroach the size of, a spray can or the size of an iPhone on the wall, if the man screams and the woman has to go and get that bug out of there, that is not as happy a relationship as it is if the woman screams and the man has to go and get it out of there. Because that second case is reacting more towards the biological bents that we both have, which are neither better or worse. They're simply different. And I would conclude this long, long speech by saying, I know that everything in your head is screaming at you that I'm wrong and all of it. But I also know that you know in your heart, and I know in my heart, and everybody else who's listening to us knows that I'm right. You won't admit that I'm right because that will destroy your entire worldview that's been foisted on you by bitter, angry, neurotic people. But you know I'm right, and I know I'm right, and they know I'm right. And you can argue all you want to. You're arguing to save your ego and your pride, but I'm right. And there we go. All right, moving on.